3-3. We're going to skip a little bit. Like I said, we've got to finish this one today. 3-3 is obviously a comic scene, a little bit of comic relief. So we have Cleopatra come in with Alexis and the messenger, and she's heard about Antony's marriage. We saw that in the previous scene with Cleopatra and the messenger, where she beats the messenger. So she hasn't come back in because now she wants to ask the messenger several questions about Octavia. She wants to get her description. Okay? What does this scene show us about Cleopatra?
She's vain.
Exactly. She's a vain narcissist, okay? Is she as tall as me? She is not. Did you hear her speak? Is she shrill-tongued or low? Madam, I heard her speak. She is low-voiced, he kind of says. Well, that's not so good. He cannot like her long. Like her, oh, I says, 'tis impossible, Charmian says. Okay? What else? What majesty is in her gait? And then Cleopatra reminds the messenger. Remember, if e'er thou looked on majesty, and if I were directing this, she kind of goes, I am majesty, slave. And he says, she creeps. Why? Does Octavia literally creep? No, because the messenger's learned his lesson. I better tell her what she wants to hear, otherwise she's going to beat me again. Her motion and her station are as one. That is, her motion, how she moves, her station, how she appears. She's like a serpent, he's essentially saying. She shows a body rather than a life, a statue than a breather. Is it certain? Okay. What else? Cleopatra likes the messenger more and more he speaks. The messenger says, when Cleopatra asked, what are her years, I prithee? Well, she was a widow. Widow, charming heart, and I do think she's 30. Okay. Now, Cleopatra is well past 30 at this point. She's in her mid-40s. Bearest thou her face? Is it long or round? Round, even to faultiness. She looks like a ball, in other words, What about her hair? What color? Brown, madam, and her forehead as low as she would wish it. So she gives him gold and stuff. So why does she ask all these questions? I mean, it's to feed her vanity, but what else? She's insecure. This is her way of telling herself, well, this marriage won't last long. He'll be back. He won't be satisfied with her. Okay? So, Antony and Octavia come in, and Octavia tells him about this division between Caesar and Antony. Believe not all, or if you must believe, stomach not all. A more unhappy lady if this division chanced, and there stood between, praying for both parts. That is, I am the most unhappy lady. Why? Because he's my brother, you're my husband, I'm praying for both of you. One of you has to rise, one of you has to fall. Whatever happens, Octavia is saying, I lose. Okay? So he tells her, if I lose mine honor, I lose myself. Better I were not yours than you are so branchless. But as you requested, yourself shall go between us. That is, you will act as ambassador. You will act as peacemaker. The meantime, I'll raise the preparation of a war shall stain your brother. Okay? He's warning her. If your ambassadorship is not successful, your brother's going down. Make your soonest haste, so your desires are yours. She says, thank you. Okay? Skip 3:5. Skip 3:5. Let's see. 3:6, Caesar comes in. He's talking to some of his troops and stuff, and he says how Antony is dividing his third of the world among his sons, and he's implying, and he's also dividing a little bit more than his third. Okay? And Agrippa says, 31, this should be answered. In other words, you have to stop him. Caesar, 'tis done already. And the messenger gone. I have told him Lepidus was grown too cruel, that he his high authority abused, and did deserve his change. For what I have conquered, I grant in part. But then in his Armenia and other of his conquered kingdoms, I demand the like. Okay. What wasn't part of the original third, Caesar is saying, that Antony's conquered, he has to give part of that to me. Okay? So Octavia comes running in. She comes running in. Okay, now where was she previously? Was she in Rome? She was with Mark Antony, Caesar says. Why have you stolen upon us thus? You came not like Caesar's sister. The wife of Antony should have an army for an usher, and the knaves of horse to tell of her approach, long ere she did appear. You deserved essentially an honor guard. And I should have known long before you arrived that you were coming. Why? Because you're my sister. And you're the wife of Mark Antony. Well, how does she come in? Essentially rags. Why? This has been a long journey. Nay, the dust should have ascended to the roof of heaven raised by your popular troops. But you are come a market maid to Rome. So she hasn't been in Rome. She's been with Mark Antony elsewhere. Not necessarily in Egypt. Okay? She says, good, my lord, to come thus was I not constrained, but did it on my own free will. My lord, Mark Antony, hearing that you prepared for war, acquainted my grieved ear with all. Antony has heard that you're preparing war against him. He told me that's why I'm here. Whereon I begged his pardon for return. Caesar, which soon he granted, being obstruct between his lust and him. He gave you leave. Why? So he could find Cleopatra. No. I have eyes upon him, and his affairs come to me on the wind. Kind of, the most observed of all observers idea again. Okay? Where is he? She says, Athens. Nope, you're wrong. No, my wronged sister Cleopatra hath nodded him to her. That is, he's gone back to Egypt. He hath given his empire up to a whore, who now are levying the kings of earth for war. He hath assembled, and he lists off a whole bunch of kings. I, me, most wretched, that have my heart parted betwixt two friends, that does afflict each other. It appears neither Caesar nor Mark Antony really care all that much for Octavia. She's become what? She's a pawn in this great chess match between two powerful generals. So Caesar welcomes her and says, go down to 89, you are abused beyond the mark of thought and the high gods. To do you justice makes his ministers of us and those that love you. In other words, I am a tool of the gods for what purpose? To bring you the honor you deserve. So how is he going to bring her honor? I'm going to kill your husband who's cheating on you. 3:7, Enobarbus and Cleopatra come in. Notice Shakespeare doesn't say stage direction. Meanwhile, back in Alexandria, okay, we just assume there's a major, location change. Okay? So, Cleopatra says, line 3, thou hast forspoke my being in these wars, and sayest it is not fit. You have spoken against my being involved in the war between Antony and Caesar. You say it's not right. Enobarbus, is it? She says, why shouldn't we? We, the royal we. Why shouldn't I be there? Okay. And Antony makes a little, caustic aside to the audience. And she says, what? Didn't catch that. What is it you say? Your presence needs must puzzle Antony. Puzzle. Hamlet used that same word in talking about the will, the resolution of thought, is what? Puzzled by conscience. Okay? So she's going to, by her presence, confuse Antony. You will take from his heart, take from his brain, from times which should not then be spared. He is already traduced for levity, traduced, spoken against. And 'tis said in Rome that Photinus and eunuch and your maids manage this war. The people in Rome are saying, one, a eunuch, and your handmaidens are the ones who are the real generals in this war. Why? Where's Antony, according to what is being said in Rome? He's too busy, let's use another line from Hamlet, in the enseamed sheets with Cleopatra. Sink Rome and their tongues rot that speak against us. A charge we bear in the war, and as the president of my kingdom will appear therefore a man. That is, I'm in charge of my kingdom. I will act for my kingdom. Okay? Now, Shakespeare may have in mind as a model for Cleopatra, I'm not saying he does, I'm saying it might be, Queen Elizabeth, who's been dead, these 5 or 6 years by the time this play is written, so it is now safe to use her as a model. Because although Queen Elizabeth did not personally march out into battle, she spoke the exact same way about her headship of the kingdom. She described herself as the royal prince. She used the masculine term to describe herself. Okay? So Antony comes in. And Antony says, 28, we will fight him by the sea. That is, we're going to fight Caesar by sea. Cleopatra, well, what else? She doesn't mean, how else will we fight him? By sea, by land, by air, so to speak. Okay? Canidius. Why? Why fight him by sea? What's Antony say? He dared me to it. He dared me. Okay? Enobarbus. Yeah, but you dared him to single combat. Keep in mind, Caesar is half Antony's age. Does that mean he's stronger? Possibly. He's 23. Antony, by this time, is 43 or so. Okay? It could also mean Antony, being the much more experienced warrior, a much more wily warrior, would beat Caesar down in a heartbeat. And that's why Antony challenged Caesar to single combat. Notice. So Enobarbus says, yeah, you challenged him to single combat. Canidius, I, into wageless battle at Pharsalia, where Caesar fought with Pompey. But these offers which serve not for his vantage, he shakes off. And so should you. Just because he's challenged you to fight at sea, doesn't mean you should accept the challenge. He didn't accept your challenge. Don't accept his. Okay, so that's one reason not to fight by sea. What's another one? Enobarbus. Your ships are not well manned. Your mariners are muleteers, mule drivers, peasants. These aren't seamen, he's saying. They are reapers, people engrossed by swift impress. That's pretty much been the way for many navies up until really the 20th century. You know, when Britain, so to speak, ruled the waves, most of their non-officer ranks, okay, were men who were pressed into service. What does that mean? That means a ship would go into port, might be Southampton, might be someplace else, but it would go into port and they would send out a gang. And the gang would go to the local taverns, go to bars, go to churches, and if it found men of the right age and strength, meaning breathing, they would put them in shackles and march them off to the ship. Even if they were quote-unquote free men. They would go to the jails, take men out of the jails, go to the prisons, take men out of the prisons. And they were essentially told, if you serve on His Majesty's Navy or Her Majesty's Navy for a period of 5, 10, 15 years, all debts are forgiven. The only problem is, serving in the Navy in the 17th, 18th, 19th centuries was usually a life sentence, meaning you died in battle. Okay? That's what's meant by impress. In Caesar's fleet, notice, so Enobarbus says, your fleet has a bunch of people who don't know anything about fighting on ship. Caesar's fleet has those who often have against Pompey fought. Caesar has well-trained Marines, in other words. Their ships are yours heavy. No disgrace. You won't be losing face by not fighting them at sea. By sea. By sea. You throw away the absolute soldiership you have by land. What does he mean? Yeah, exactly. You have the upper hand if you fight him by land. Notice, if Antony marches his best soldiership on a province, town, region that Caesar wants, can Caesar defeat him by keeping his troops on sea? No. No, Antony will win that territory. Caesar will be compelled to fight by sea. How can Caesar compel Antony to fight by sea? He can't. He can't. Okay? I'll fight at sea. Cleopatra, I've got 60 sails. Caesar, none better. Our overplus of shipping will we burn. That is, where we have more ships than Caesar, we won't use the extra. If he's got 40 sails, we'll go at him with 40 sails. What's going on in Antony's head? Yeah, not much, actually. Okay? He's not thinking with his head. He's thinking with something else. And with the rest, full man from the head of Actium beat the approaching Caesar. We get the approaching battle named. This is the battle that Mark Antony loses at. That Caesar becomes, after this, Augustus. It's when he's elevated and become godlike. Okay? So, Antony says, Canidius, our 19 legions shalt thou hold by hand, and our 12,000 horse. 19 legions. That's an awful lot of, I don't remember, not a footnote there. I'm trying to remember how many soldiers were in a legion.
3,000.
Yeah, it was huge. Okay, so, I mean, he's talking possibly close to 100,000 if it's 5,000 troops in a legion. Okay? So, soldier, unnamed, just soldier, comes in and says, don't fight by sea. 'Tis not, trust not to rotten planks. Our ships, he says, aren't even seaworthy. Do you misdoubt this sword and these my wounds? Let the Egyptians and the Phoenicians go a-ducking. we have used to conquer standing on the earth and fighting foot to foot. The soldier says, on ground, we can't be defeated. The Phoenicians were known as sailing people. The Egyptians more or less too. Let them fight by sea. Okay? Antony Cleopatra leave, along with Enobarbus. And the soldier says, I'm in the right. Canidius, soldier thou art, but his whole action grows not in the power on it. So our leaders led, and we are women's men. Our leaders led. He's saying Cleopatra has a leash around him. He will do whatever she wants. $310. Notice between where we left off, 3:7 and 3:10, some major events occur. Okay? Enobarbus comes in. Not, all, not. Nothing. Nothing, all, nothing. I can behold no longer. The Antoniad, the Egyptian admiral, with all their 60, fly and turn the rudder. The Antoniad's the name of Antony's ship. It does what? It has 60 sails in the general's ship, the admiral's ship, in this sense, flees from the battle. Why? Well, we're going to find out in just a minute. Okay? Enobarbus says to Scarus, when Scarus comes in, what's thy passion? The greater cantle of the world is lost with very ignorance. We have kissed away kingdoms and provinces. He's saying, we could have had it all. How appears the fight? On our side, like the token pestilence, where death is sure. Okay, Enobarbus. Yeah, I saw some, but tell me. She, Cleopatra, once being aloof, the noble ruin of her magic, Antony claps on his sea wing, and like a doting mallard, leaving the flight in height, flies after her. I never saw an action of such shame. In the midst of the battle, in the very height of the battle, Cleopatra's ship leaves. Antony, spying Cleopatra's ship, goes after her. Okay? What does that do to the rest of his sail? Well, they lose their commander. Losing their commander means they also lose their will to fight. Canidius, about 25 or so. Had our general been what he knew himself, it had gone well. Oh, he has given example for our flight most grossly by his own. When the other sail under his command see the admiral's ship flee, they all flee too. Canidius, to Caesar will I render my legions and my horse. 6 kings already show me the way of yielding. What 6 kings? Those are the kings that Caesar referred to back in Act 3, Scene 6, beginning around line 70. Bacchus, king of Libya, Archelaus, Cappadocia, Philadelphos, Paphlagonia, etc., etc. So these are kings who had sworn to Antony. Now, because they've seen Antony turn tail in a battle, they've all gone and done what? Offered their services to Caesar. Why? They're saving their necks. They realize serving Antony will not pay off. So now Canidius says, I'm going to as well. Enobarbus, I'll yet follow the wounded chance of Antony, though my reason sits in the wind against me. So why is he going to follow Antony if his reason says, don't do it? we're seeing Enobarbus here do something that was on the quiz that Antony is suffering from. Reason versus passion. Antony is acting entirely out of passion, his love for Cleopatra. What's Enobarbus acting out of? His love for Antony. Here, I think it would be safe to call this loyalty. Because cold-hearted reason would tell him to do what? Abandon that ship. Because that ship, Antony, is going down. Why? Because Antony is not in his proper frame of mind. So, Antony comes in. 3:11. Hark, the land bids me tread no upon it. It is a shame to bear me. Why is the land ashamed to bear him? Because he wouldn't march his troops on the land. Because he didn't trust to the land. No, he trusted to the water. Friends, come hither. I am so laden in the world that I have lost my way forever. I have a ship laden with gold. Take it. Divide. Fly. Take my treasure ship. Divide it up among you. Flee. What's he telling his followers? Leave me. And make your peace with Caesar. He's telling his followers, go to Caesar. Why? Because he knows what's coming. Fly, not we. That is, no, we'll stand with you. I have fled myself. Now, interesting punning language there. It means two things. One, I fled from the battle. What else? What did Hamlet say to Laertes when he jumped into Ophelia's grave? Did Hamlet wrong Laertes? No, it wasn't Hamlet. It was Hamlet's madness. Antony is saying, I fled myself. I fled from myself. I am not what I once was. I am not what I ought to be. And have instructed cowards to run and show their shoulders. That is, to put their backs to the enemy. Begone. I have myself resolved upon a course which has no need of you. Okay, we're only at Act 3, Scene 11, bearing in mind that as Shakespeare wrote this, there are no acts and scenes, but we still have 1362. We still have 20 pages to go in this play. And what is Antony foreshadowing here, telegraphing to us? When he says, I have resolved upon a course which has no need of you. Suicide, yeah, he's going to die. I don't need anybody else to help me with this. Though he does ask somebody, we'll talk about that later. Begone, my treasure's in the harbor. Take it. I followed that I blushed to look upon. I followed that. What's the that? Cleopatra. And he says, and now I blush to look upon her. My very hairs do mutiny for the white reprove the brown for rashness, and they them for fear and doting. Friends, be gone. He's telling them, save yourselves. You shall have letters from me to some friends that will sweep your way for you. Pray you look not sad, nor make replies. Take the hint. Go. Cleopatra comes in. And Eros, one of Antony's servants, one of his closest servants, someone who's been in battle with him for a long time, says, Madam, comfort him. Why? What does Eros know is going on up here in Antony? He's losing it. Okay? Comfort him. Bring him to his right mind. Iris, Charming, go, go, go. So the queen goes up to him And Eros says, most noble sir, arise. The queen approaches. Her head's declined. Death will seize her. But your comfort makes the rescue. Notice, Eros now turns it around and says, Antony, Cleopatra's coming. Her head is declining. Okay, one literally means she's looking at the ground. But he's also saying, she is preparing to kill herself. You had better encourage her. I have offended reputation, a most unnoble, swerving. What do you do when you swerve in a car? You do this, right? It's a sudden movement. It's not a nice, gentle right-hand turn. Well, why do you usually swerve? So you don't hit something. Okay? He is saying he's offended his reputation. Sir, the queen. Oh, whither hast thou led me, Egypt? Why did I follow you? Where have you led me? Well, she has led him to an offended reputation. See how I convey my shame out of thine eyes by looking back what I've left behind, destroyed in honor. In other words, he says, I see myself in your eyes, and I see myself how? Honorless. My Lord, forgive my fearful sales. I little thought you would have followed. She says, I fled. Why? Because I was fearful. Well, what did Enobarbus, before the battle, tell her? You shouldn't go to battle. I didn't think you would follow me. Antony, Egypt thou knewst too well. My heart was to thy rudder tied by the strings. Notice, my heart was what? Tied to your rudder. So, wherever you turned, I followed. He was rudderless in the sense of his reason should have been his rudder. And thou shouldst tow me after. Tow. What's that imply? He has no power of his own. O'er my spirit thy full supremacy thou knewst. You knew going into this battle that you governed me, and that thy beck might from the bidding of the gods command me. That is, if the gods said one thing and you said another, I would have followed you. My pardon. Little late, but it means sorry. Now I must to the young man send humble treaties. The young man, Caesar. Dodge and palter in the shifts of lowness. Shifts. The clothing, the outward appearance. In other words, I have got to humble myself and beg from him. Who with half the bulk of the world played as I pleased. I had half the world. You did know how much you were my conqueror, and that my sword, made weak by my affection, would obey it on all cause. Sorry. Trying to remember who the playwright was. It's either John Dryden or Alexander Pope. Wrote a play based on Antony Cleopatra called All for Love. Okay? Kind of loosely modeled on Shakespeare, but it kind of takes a more positive look at it and says, Antony does everything he does for love. And love is a valuable, virtue to be celebrated and such. Shakespeare's not looking at it that way. Antony, fall not a tear, I say. One of them rates all that is won and lost. That is, don't let a tear fall. Why? Because one of your tears is worth everything to me. Doesn't matter what I win and lose. Give me a kiss. This is essentially making up after losing everything. Even this repays me. We sent our schoolmaster. Is it come back, love? I am full of lead. Some wine, come on. Fortune knows we scorn her most when most she offers blows. When fortune is doing what? Beating us down. That's when we scorn her most. Oh, yeah. Okay? So, 3:12. A schoolmaster comes in from Antony to Dolabella, and, from Antony to Caesar, and we'll skip actually that scene. Go to 3:13. Cleopatra comes in with Enobarbus and says, what should we do? Think and die. Is Antony or we in fault for this? Okay, Enobarbus is a Roman, probably somewhat of a Stoic, serves Antony. So when she says, is Antony at fault or am I at fault? This is a kind of dangerous question for Enobarbus to reply, because either way he replies, he's kind of damned. Antony only, that would make his will Lord of his reason. His will. Shakespeare's day, the word will didn't mean only volition. It also meant his genitalia and his sexual desires. He would make his desires Lord of his reason. See, in that whole great chain of being thing where you talk about the external world, okay, that great chain of being also applies to us internally. And the very top of that great chain of being is our reason. And the very bottom is, kind of our automatic nervous system where we can't help but breathe, etc. And somewhere in the middle, faith her privates we, is passion. Why? Head, top, heart in the middle, that's passion. Down below that even would be like sexual desires. Okay? Because passion isn't necessarily, it could also be anger, etc. Antony's to blame. What though you fled from that great face of war whose several ranges frighted each other? Why should he follow? In other words, Antony knew better. The itch of his affection should not then have nicked his captainship. At such a point when half the world opposed, he being the married question. 'Twas a shame no less than was his loss. It's not your fault. He knew better than to follow you. Okay? So, Antony says, to the boy Caesar send this grizzled head, and he will fill thy wishes to the brim with principalities. Tell Cleopatra, send me to the boy. And he'll do what? He'll give her whatever she wants. Okay? Antony and them all leave. Enobarbus is alone on the stage for a moment. Yes, like enough, high-battled Caesar will unstate his happiness and be staged to the show against the sworder. I see men's judgments are a parcel of their fortunes, a piece of. And things outward do draw the inward quality after them to suffer all alike. That he should dream, knowing all measures, the full Caesar will answer his emptiness. Caesar, thou hast subdued his judgment too. In other words, you not only beat him on the battlefield, the ocean, you also subdued his judgment. Antony's ready to quit. All right? So, a messenger comes in. Antony has him beat and sent back. And He and Cleopatra start to have a fight. 117, Cleopatra says, has it come to this, Antony? I found you as a morsel, cold upon dead Caesar's trencher. Trencher, a serving dish. Dead Caesar, he is saying, was done with you. You were used up. Nay, you were a fragment of Gnaeus Pompey's. Besides what hotter hours unregistered in vulgar fame you have luxuriously picked out. Okay, what has Caesar already called Cleopatra several times? A whore. That's what Antony's calling her without using the word in front of her. For I am sure, though you can guess what temperance should be, you know not what it is. That is, you do not know how to be temperate. Wherefore is this? In other words, what gives? Okay. So, Antony replies, when they bring the servant Thaddeus back out, says, get thee back to Caesar, 142. Tell him thy entertainment, that is, what I did. Look, thou say, he makes me angry with him. For he seems proud and disdainful, harping on what I am, not what he knew I was. Notice, harping on what I am. What does the what I am mean? What I am now. Caesar's talking about what I am now, not what I once was. Well, the once is important there. He makes me angry. This is Mark Antony kind of rousing himself, shuffling off, the passion that's been controlling him, the sexual passion. Now it's going to be kind of this anger passion. And at this time, most easy 'tis to do it when my good stars that were my former guides have empty left their orbs and shot their fires into the abysm of hell. If he mislike my speech and what is done, tell him he has Hipparchus, my enfranchised bondman, whom he may at pleasure whip or hang or torture, as he shall like to quit me. Urge it thou. Cleopatra, you done yet? She's talking to him how? What is she essentially saying Antony is just engaged in? Schoolboy bravado. Okay. Antony says, to flatter Caesar, would you mingle eyes with one that ties his points? Not know me. You still don't get me, do you? Cold-hearted toward me, Antony. Cleopatra. Dear, if I be so, for my cold heart let heaven engender hail and poison it in the source, in the first stone drop in my neck. As it determines, so dissolve my life. The next Caesarian smite. Till by degrees the memory of my womb, together with my brave Egyptians all, by the discanding. In other words, she's saying, me, cold-hearted toward you, let the gods kill my son and all my people. That good enough to show you I still love you? Antony, I'm satisfied. Our force by land hath nobly held. In other words, we're not done yet. We're not defeated yet. Our severed navy too have knit again, and fleet threatening most sea-like. Where hast thou been, my heart? My heart here can mean my encourager. Dost thou hear, lady? If from the field I shall return once more to kiss these lips, I will appear in blood. So, I'm going off for another battle. This is round 2, so to speak. That's my brave lord. That's the Antony I know and love, I will be treble-sinewed, hearted, breathed, and fight maliciously. Well, what's he really doing? This is what sports psychologists talk about doing before a big match, a big race, a big bout, etc. You work yourself up. Okay? So, Antony goes off. We have Enobarbus left alone on the stage again. Now he'll outstare the lightning. That is, lightning. If lightning comes and it's dropping all around, Antony will stand there and take it on. To be furious is to be frightened out of fear, and in that mood the devil pecked Estrid. And I see still a diminution in our captain's brain, restores his heart. When valor preys on reason, it eats the sword it fights with. I'll seek a way to leave him. Enobarbus is saying, he's still not in his right mind. He's doing this why? To prove something to Cleopatra. Caesar. He calls me boy! Because that's what he had Thaddeus call him. He chides as he had power to beat me out of Egypt. Well, did he have power to beat him out of Egypt? Well, not by sea. Though that wasn't Egypt, that was Greece. My messenger he hath whipped with rods, dares me to personal combat, Caesar to Antony. Let the old ruffian know I have many other ways to die. Meantime, laugh at his challenge. Old ruffian. What is Caesar showing us there? Bingo. Past his prime. He's an old geezer. He's a ruffian. Not a general. This is like, he's using the language of like a highway robber, okay, to describe Antony. Maecenas says, Caesar must think when one so great begins to rage, he's hunted even to falling. This is Maecenas saying, Caesar, calm down. Give him no breath. That is, don't send word back. But now make boot of his distraction. That is, use Antony's distraction, Cleopatra, for your gain. Let our best heads know that tomorrow, the last of many battles, we mean to fight. That is, tomorrow, we're going to finish it. Within our files there are of those that served Mark Antony but late enough to fetch him in. See it done. That is, a lot of people that used to serve Mark Antony have come over to our side. Well, what is Caesar going to do with those men? He's going to put them in the front of the battle. Why? So Mark Antony's men kill Mark Antony's men. Nothing like messing with your enemy's mind in a battle. Okay? So 4-2. Antony comes in, line 6. 5, he says, tomorrow, soldier, by sea and land, I'll fight, or I will live or bathe my dying honor, and the blood shall make it live again. That is, I will die with honor, and so doing will restore the honor that he lost previously. Okay. Skip several scenes. 4-5. Soldiers come out, meet Antony. It's the morning. Big day's coming. The gods make this a happy day to Antony. Would thou and those thy scars had once prevailed to make me fight at land. This is the same soldier who said, trust not to rotten ships. Antony saying, we should listen to you before. Hadst thou done so, the kings that have revolted, that is all those kings that are now fighting for Caesar, and the soldier that has this morning left thee, notice Antony doesn't know about this soldier, would have still followed thy heels. Who's gone this morning? Who? One ever near thee, call for Enobarbus, he shall not hear thee, or from Caesar's camp say, I am none of thine. What? He's with Caesar. Arrows, his chest and treasure he has not with him. That is, Enobarbus didn't take that. He's gone? Most certain. Go, Eros. Send his treasure to him. Take his stuff. Send it to Caesar's camp. Detain no jot. I charge thee. Write to him. I will subscribe. That is, I'll sign my name below. Gentle adieus and greetings. Say that I wish he never find more cause to change a master. What does Antony mean by that? I wish he never find more cause to change a master. Enobarbus had great cause to switch sides. Why? What was the great cause? Antony wasn't acting like Antony. Oh, my fortunes have corrupted honest men. Caesar, 4:6, says, I want Antony taken alive. Don't kill him. The time of universal peace is near. Prove this a prosperous day. Okay? You got a gloss there, line 5. The Renaissance identified Octavius Caesar, or the Emperor Augustus, as he was subsequently titled, with his Pax Romana, peace under the Roman Empire, which did more or less last from about the time of the Battle of Actium, 31 BC, until Augustus's death. Okay, in what, 680 or so? Okay. It was one of the longest, quote-unquote, known periods of peace without wars in the entire Roman period, from roughly 300, I know Rome was founded, 700 BC or so, but from roughly 300 BC to roughly 400 AD. Okay? So Caesar is kind of issuing a prophecy here. Once today's over, we will have universal peace. Okay? Charge Agrippa, plant those that have revolted, that is, Antony's former men, put them in the van that's in the front. Enobarbus, Alexis did revolt and went to Jewry on affairs of Antony. There did dissuade great Herod to incline himself to Caesar, and leave his master Antony for this pain. Caesar hath hanged him. Canidius and the rest that fell away of entertainment, but no honorable trust. I have done ill, of which I do accuse myself so sorely that I will joy no more. In other words, Enobarbus kind of realizes what's up. Soldier, Enobarbus, Antony sends you his greetings and all of your stuff. The soldier leaves. Enobarbus, I am alone, the villain of the earth, and to feel I am so most. O Antony, thou mine of bounty, how wouldst thou have paid my better service, when my turpitude thou dost so crown with gold. Turpitude, moral failure. He says, you repay my moral failure by sending me all my gold. How much more would you repay me if I were honest and true to you? This blows my heart. If swift thought break it not, a swifter mean shall outstrike thought. But thought will do it, I feel. I fight against thee, that is, me go to war against Antony? No. I will go seek some ditch wherein to die. The foul best fits my latter part of life. And what happens to him? He kills himself. Okay? Go to 4:9. There's Enobarbus again. O sovereign mistress of true melancholy, thy poisonous damp of night dispunge upon me, that life, a very rebel to my will, may hang no longer on me. Throw my heart against the flint and hardness of my fault, which being dried with grief will break to powder and finish all foul thoughts. O Antony, nobler than my revolt is infamous. Forgive me in thine own particular. But let the world rank me and register a master leaver and a fugitive. Let the world remember me as what? What does he mean, a master leaver? Turncoat, you've got a gloss. I don't know if it's what it says. One who deserts his master, a non-parial of deserters. What's a non-parial? Someone without match. So, you want to think of deserters, traitors. You know, in American history, who do we have? Benedict Arnold. Well, Enobarbus should be up there too, according to Enobarbus. And what does he do? He dies. Oh. Jaws popping. We have Antony come in with Scaurus. Let's see here. 412. They come in again. And Antony says, all is lost. This foul Egyptian hath betrayed me. My fleet hath yielded to the foe, and yonder they cast their caps up and carouse together like friends long lost. That is, they yield, and now they're drinking together. Triple turned whore, 'tis thou hast sold me to this novice. A novice? Caesar. And my heart makes only wars on thee. Bid them all fly, for when I am revenged upon my charm, I have done all. Bid them all fly, be gone. O son, thy uprise shall I see no more. Today's my last day. I won't live till tomorrow. Fortune and Antony part here. Even here do we shake hands, etc. Cleopatra comes in. Why is my lord enraged against his love? What have I done? Vanish, or I shall give thee thy deserving and blemish Caesar's triumph. Give thee thy deserving? Kill you. Let him take thee and hoist thee up to the shouting plebeians. That is, let Caesar take you and march you through the streets of Rome and give you to the mob. Kind of like what happened to Mussolini when the Italians finally turned against him. Follow his chariot like the greatest spot of all thy sex, most monster-like be shown for poor diminutives, for dolts, and let patient Octavia plow thy visage up with her prepared nails. I mean, he's not holding back now. Okay? Cleopatra leaves. 'Tis well thou art gone, if it be well to live, but better 'twere thou fell'st into my fury, for one death might have prevented many. Eros, ho! The shirt of Nessus is upon me. When Hercules, or Alcides, had fatally wounded the centaur Nessus for trying to rape Hercules' wife, Nessus vengefully gave his blood-soaked shirt to Deianira as a supposed love charm for her husband. The poison gave Hercules such agony, he cast his page Lycus into the air. The shirt of Nessus is upon me. Teach me, Alcides, thou mine ancestor, thy rage. Let me lodge Lycus on the horns of the moon, and with those hands I grasp the heaviest club, subdue my worthiest self. The witch shall die. That's Cleopatra. To the young Roman boy she hath sold me, and I fall under this plot. She dies for it. Eros, halt! Why is he calling Eros? Bring me my sword. I'm going to go. 413. Cleopatra comes in, says he's crazy. They say, go to your monument, that is, lock yourself up where he can't harm you. Because they think Antony's going to come kill her. Antony and Eros enter, 414. And what does Antony ask Eros to do? We've seen the same thing in Julius Caesar. Hold the sword for me to fall on. Actually, he wants Eros to strike. Okay? So, Mardian comes in, and Antony sees Mardian and says, oh, thy vile lady, she has robbed me of my sword. Yeah.
I might be wrong, but is Eros not Greek for
Love.
erotic love?
Mm-hmm.
So that irony that Antony wants love to kill him.
Yeah.
Okay. I just was wondering if that was
Yeah, if Shakespeare is doing that, but yeah, I mean that's why that later play that I mentioned, written by either Dryden or Pup, I can't remember, All for Love. Okay, I mean he is willing to die for love. Okay, yeah, it is brilliant. Okay, so Mardian comes in. Mardian's a eunuch. Okay. He says, your vile lady has robbed me of my sword. No, Antony, my mistress loved thee. Her fortunes mingled with thine entirely. Get out of here, he says. Death of one person can be paid but once, and that she has discharged. Cleopatra's dead, Mardian says. She rendered life thy name so buried in her. That is, her last words were, Antony, most noble Antony, and dies. Dead. Unarmed Eros, the long day's task is done. The long day's task. Okay? He means not, I think, I could be wrong here, but Antony means not only this 24-hour day, he means my day's life. Okay? My entire life's task is done. He tells Mardian, depart, leave. So, Eros unarms him, and he says, the sevenfold shield of Ajax cannot keep the battery from my heart. Oh, cleave my sides. He tells Eros to go away for a while. I will overtake thee, Cleopatra, and weep for my pardon. So it must be, for now all length is torture. Since the torch is out, lie down and stray no farther. I come, my queen. So he calls for Eros. What do you want, my lord? Since Cleopatra died, I have lived in such dishonor that the gods detest my baseness. I, that with my sword quartered the world and o'er green Neptune's back with ships made cities, condemn myself, etc., etc., etc. He says, do it. Remember that on my command that thou wouldst then kill me, that is, when you swore service to me, that you swore you would kill me on my command? He says, yes. Do it. Eros, wouldst thou be, line 72, windowed in great Rome, and see thy master thus with pleached arms, bending down his corrigible neck, his face subdued? In other words, would you be held up in a window for all of Rome to look at and see me beat and spat upon? I would not see it. Well, then come, for with a wound I must be cured. Draw that Diana sword which thou hast worn, most useful for thy country. Oh, sir, pardon me. Okay? So Eros says, I'll do it, but I can't do it when you're looking at me. Turn away. Let's do good, mafia style, execution. 2 in the back of the head, so to speak. Turn from me then that noble countenance wherein the worship of the whole world lies. Antony turns. Says, my sword is drawn. Antony, do it at once. That thing, why thou hast drawn it? He says, my dear master, my captain, my emperor. He says, okay, strike now. And Eros says, all right. And he starts to act like he's going to put it on Antony's neck and turns and thrice nobler than myself. Why? Because he was able to take his own life. See, the Stoics taught that it was a mark of honor to take one's own life rather than die at the hand of one's enemies. This isn't a mark of honor because he's afraid of his enemies. This is a mark of honor because Eros takes his own life rather than take his Lord's life. Thou teachest me, O valiant Eros, what I should, and thou couldst not. You teach me what I should do, and you couldn't do. You couldn't kill me, and I should kill myself. My queen and Eros have by their brave instruction, so what does he do? He falls on his sword, but not well enough. It's not like he falls on it and points it, upwards to go through the lungs and heart. He falls on it going straight. So it goes through his gut. Not necessarily going to kill you. Yeah, it's going to hurt like hell. But it's not necessarily going to kill you. Okay? Falls. How? Not dead. Okay? So the guards come and get him. 4:15, we find out Cleopatra isn't dead. Mardian was lying. She says to Charmian, I will not go from hence. That is, I will die here. Okay? And they bring in Mark Antony. And Mark Antony says, not Caesar's valor, line, 15 or so, hath overthrown Antony, but Antony hath triumphed on itself. So it should be that none but Antony should conquer Antony. Yeah, well, Antony should have conquered Antony. I am dying, Egypt, dying. Only I hear importune death a while until of many thousand kisses the poor last I lay. She says, I dare not, blah, 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 blah. Okay, they start to lift Antony up. And he keeps saying he's dying, but he's not. He finally does die. Now my spirit is going 60. I can no more. Cleopatra. Noblest of men would die. Hast thou no care of me? Shall I abide in this dull world, which in thy presence is no better than a sty? Okay, so he dies, and they kind of gently lay him down. Caesar comes in. And Dercetus, 5:1, tells Caesar that Antony is dead. Dercetus says, 5 or so, I am called Dercetus, Mark Antony I served, who best was worthy, best to be served. Okay. He's saying that in front of Caesar. When he says Mark Antony was worthy, who best was worthy, best to be served, that is Dercetus's partial, at least, slam at Caesar. My dead master was better to be served than you. Whilst he stood up and spoke, he was my master, and I wore my life to spend upon his haters. As I was to him, albeit to Caesar, if thou pleasest not, I yield thee up my life. That is, I was servant to him, but he's dead now, so now I'll be servant to you if you want. If not, kill me. What? Antony is dead. Look at Caesar's response. The breaking of so great a thing should make a greater crack. And Caesar is saying, there should be an earthquake. The round world should have shook lions into civil streets and citizens to their dens. What happened when Julius Caesar died? There were omens in the skies and stuff. Octavius Caesar is saying Antony was greater than that. The death of Antony is not a single doom. In the name lay a moiety of the world. That is a greater part. He is dead, Caesar, not by a public minister of justice, nor by a hired knife, but that self-hand which writ his honor in the acts that did. He took his own life. And he gives him the sword. Look, you said, friends, the gods rebuke me, but it is tidings to wash the eyes of kings. That's Caesar's way of saying he's got tears flowing, or he should. Good actor. And strange it is that nature must compel us to lament our most persistent deeds. What's Agrippa mean? Our most persistent deed. The things we try the hardest at. Well, what were Agrippa and Caesar trying their damnedest to do? Kill Mark Antony. Now Mark Antony's dead. His taints and honors waged equal with them. A rarer spirit never did steer humanity. But you gods will give us some faults to make us men. What does that mean? I don't know if that's what the footnote's about or not. Steer humanity, govern any individual. That's a useless footnote. You gods will give us some faults to make us men. That is, to try us. Notice, Caesar is touched. O Antony, I have followed thee to this, but we do launch diseases in our bodies. I must perforce have shown to thee such a declining day, or look on thine. That is, one of two things was going to happen. Either I would show you such a declining day, or look on yours. That is, you would have seen my death, or I had to see yours. Well, one of us had to go. Well, what did the soothsayer say? Back much earlier. Antony went to the soothsayer and said, whose fortunes will reign? And he says, Caesar's. You should get as far away from Caesar as you can. But let me lament with tears as sovereign as the blood of hearts, that thou, my brother, my competitor, in top of all design, my mate in empire, friend and companion in the front of war, the arm of mine own body, in the heart where mine his thoughts did kindle, that our stars unreconcilable should divide our equalness to this. I mean, this was a honored competitor. Okay. 5-2. Cleopatra. Now let's skip all that. Dolabella essentially tells her not to trust Caesar. Cleopatra has her little interview with Caesar. She leaves. She goes back to her monument. How does she die? Fall on a sword? Asp. What does she do? Let's see here. Line 308. Yeah, back up. 302. Come, thou mortal wretch, she takes the asp. With thy sharp teeth, this knot intrinsicate of life at once untie. This knot intrinsicate. What knot? The knot that John Donne says, how does he put it? This knot that makes us man. The knotting together of body and soul. She says, untie this knot, poor venomous fool, be angry and dispatch. Charming, peace, peace. Cleopatra, peace, peace. Dost thou not see my baby at my breast that sucks the nurse asleep? She opens her cloak, sticks the asp in, closes the cloak, and does this. As the asp bites her on the breast. As sweet as balm, as soft as air, as gentle, O Antony, what should I stay? So, Caesar comes in. Bravest at the last, she leveled at our purposes and being royal, took her own way. In other words, leveled at her purposes. She knew what I intended. And she took her own way out. The manner of their deaths, that is, she's not bleeding, Charmian's not bleeding. How'd they die? We find out it's the asp, Caesar. Last speech. Most probable that so she died, for her physician tells me she hath pursued conclusions infinite of easy ways to die. Take up her bed, bear her women from the monument, she shall be buried by her Antony. No grave upon the earth shall clip in it a pair so famous. High events as these strike those that make them, and their story is no less in pity than his glory which brought them to be lamented. Our army shall in solemn show attend this funeral, and then to Rome. Come, Dolabella, see what? High order in this great solemnity. That is, have everything done just right. So what kind of funeral is he giving his greatest enemy?
Honorable one.
State funeral. His greatest enemies. Sorry, I should say, because Cleopatra was also. Okay, we'll stop there. For the, I don't remember what I have next on the syllabus, but we'll do Winter's Tale next. Okay, that's the next one.
Is our last test going to be a test, or is it going to be another paper?
You know, I was thinking about that today. I'd like it to be a test. And so what I'm going to do before then